The Last of Us Episode 6, Kin, has been dropped with 3 episodes left. We are 2/3 of the way through, and we're about exactly where I expected us to be at this point with 3 episodes left. Now, we will discuss some plot details of the game past this part of the show, but not yet. I will definitely wait till the end for that, so if you do not want to know what happens next and you haven't played the games, you will be warned for spoilers for future episodes, since they follow the games almost verbatim as far as the main story beats go, that I cannot imagine they're going to change anything major at this point, right? Biggest change we will have in this show for the first season that I can tell will be the Bill and Frank stuff. And even that isn't that drastically different. We still end up in the exact same place.
Yeah.
Anyways, so the episode starts with the introduction of these characters from the trailer that we wondered who the hell they were.
Uh-huh.
And how long they'd be in the show. The answer is they're the characters from the trailer.
Yeah.
There's nothing really we gain from this episode that we did from the trailer. Basically, they're funny.
They
are. The wife is funny.
Yes, they have a really good sense of humor and chemistry between them. Like they feel like an old married couple. You know, that are they love each other, but they are kind of different in some ways, but also super similar. It was great.
Yeah. So, we get them. He says the lines from the trailer, what's the best way west, head east. And then they leave. And this is where we first get a glimpse of Joel's anxiety condition.
Yes.
I thought they were leaning towards heart condition.
Yeah.
The after credits making of, I think it was Neil or Craig, I can't remember which one of them, said that it was a combination of an anxiety attack or panic disorder or whatever the hell, and his age.
I think Neil said it.
Which, that would lean towards it's his heart.
Sure. Yeah.
Which would be completely new to the game.
Yes.
Or to the story from the game.
Mm-hmm. But anxiety can affect your heart, though.
I'm
for
well
sure.
aware.
So
I'm well
yeah,
aware,
it makes
as
sense.
you are.
Yeah, that he would have that reaction, the physical reaction to his anxiety.
Sure, but when I first saw it, I thought heart. Then the second time, I was like, is this the heart? And then the third time, because we had it 3 times in the episode, I was like, no, this is a panic attack.
Yeah.
So it was just the behind the scenes thing that he said, combination of his age, or I was like, are they trying to say it's his heart? Because age, right? A panic attack and age, I mean, you're saying the heart. So whatever.
Sure, yeah.
Anyway, moving on. So then we get the famous unused artwork of Joel and Ellie at the campfire, which we'd been wondering when we were going to get. And a couple episodes ago, Ellie had asked for a campfire, and he was like, why am I going to tell you no? And in that moment when she asked for it, we're like, oh, this is where we're going to get the campfire scene? Right. No. This is where we finally get it, 6 episodes in. And, Ellie has learned from Joel, right? We see, this is the most father-daughter episode. And it would make sense, right? Because the episode is titled Kin.
Yeah. And
kin means a lot of things in this episode. It's not just Tommy. It's not just the mention of Sarah. It's the mention, it's not us meeting Maria and the fact that she's pregnant and this is all kin. But it's also, of course, about Joel and Ellie. It's kinship that is forming as she's becoming his surrogate daughter.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it is the most father-daughter bond episode that we've gotten, and it's wonderful. It's just they have such a natural, falling into that relationship. that it flows really nicely, and it's very heartfelt. Everything, I feel like you can see both sides super clearly. Like, you can see Ellie's point of view and you can see Joel's point of view, and it's just it is heartwarming, but also like heartbreaking to know like where they're both coming from and where that's leading them like together.
Much like I'll say the second episode, I would say outside of the second episode, this is probably the most shot for shot of the game. Mm-hmm. While there is definitely changes and differences, right? And I'll definitely be talking probably about every single one of them. For the most part, everything I can remember off the top of my head, I only have seen it once now. Did I say seening it?
Seening it once now, yeah.
I was trying not to say it.
Seening it once.
Seeing it once.
Yeah.
There's so much here. Like, and we'll get to the one scene that is verbatim exactly the same and was done perfectly, and it was so exciting to hear to be done exactly the same. Mm-hmm. But there are changes, and the changes are here, but they don't change anything. Yeah. Right? So even though there are changes, right? Like when we meet Tommy, he's at the dam and they're trying to fix it. And in this, they've had it fixed for a few years, right? And now they're working on the sewage and they're working on the electricity. These are things that they've worked on since the dam. I don't know if she said they're working on anything currently. I think it was the sewers that they're trying to get done now. Or did she say that was after the dam? They got the sewers, then the electricity and everything. I couldn't remember. She
said after, but I'd have to watch it again just to make sure. But
almost all of those things are definitely things they've already accomplished.
Right.
Because Ellie's like, this town fucking works.
Right.
Or whatever she says. I just thought maybe she said one thing that they're currently working on and then a bunch of things that they did accomplish. But it might have just been everything they've accomplished so far.
I think like every episode we're always talking about how the changes are just streamlined, like they're minimal changes if any. Yeah. And they make the story move much better in this medium instead of it being in a video game. Like the whole part of the dam, when you meet Tommy in the game, like a lot of that is action sequence. A lot of that is fighting. And that's like one of the big things that's cut out of the show's adaptation is we don't get as much action because it's much more character centric and story driven, which is absolutely fine. And like the show is still telling the story and accomplishing what it needs to accomplish by removing those bits.
It is. This isn't a critique, right? This is more of just a like wish list fulfilled kind of thing. The only thing this show is missing for me, and this is the only criticism I think I'd have of the entire series thus far, is a lack of action sequences. Mm-hmm. Right? They're there. They happen. Right? We get the clicker scene in the museum. We get Tess blowing up the building with all of the infected inside. We get, we get some action sequences. I'm not going to go through all of them. It's pointless. But cutting out like some of the fighting that takes place in Colorado was a little bit of a bummer, just because I wanted to see a little bit more of a fight there. Mm-hmm. But we're jumping ahead. So, do I really care? No, because I think they are saving it for episode 8 and 9.
Yeah.
I think that there's going to be a decent amount in there. I can't imagine that they're not going to have action in 8 and 9.
Yeah.
Assuming what they're going to be doing in 8 and 9.
Right.
So I don't think it's going to matter in the end.
Mm-hmm.
It's just for now, but let's move on. All right, so they make their way across. They meet these people, and then they run into the Riders of Rohan.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty much. And Joel thinks that Ellie is going to get attacked by this dog. And I was like, I don't know what's going to happen here. Right? Because this doesn't happen in the game.
No.
So I knew she wasn't going to get like mauled to death or anything.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I figured that she, like, you know, the dog is obviously, he's okay with her. And I thought that that was going to be the case because I was, like, talking to you during the episode. I know that she's not infected, though. Like, she has the cordyceps in her, but they're not really, like, active. So I feel like the dog would be able to sense that it was, like, you know, whether or not it was active or not.
Maybe, but she still turns positive on a meter.
I know. So I don't really, I guess I don't have a great explanation
Would
for
you
that,
share blood with her? Would you let her
maybe?
like,
I mean, her blood doesn't do anything. I mean, Sam's already infected.
Didn't save
right?
him,
So,
but he did turn.
yes, but
he was going to
already
turn
bit,
anyway.
So I don't know. I don't know if her
But
blood is.
If she cut herself and put her blood in yours, do you think it would turn you?
Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. I think her
You're
body.
You're going to take that risk?
I don't know. Well, I'm not. I just
am
not sure.
I'm going to say no.
But I figured, obviously, yeah, you know, that the dog was going to not do anything. And I really love the scene that we get with her and the dog where she's, like, laughing and petting it and it's licking her face and everything. And I think everybody there kind of, like, you know, they look at her, like Maria looks at her, and they're just kind of reminded, you know, like, that she's a kid. So as much as they need to be cautious about who they're letting into Jackson, they obviously are good people that have hearts still. Like, they're not some of the other people we've met in the show.
But she recognizes that this is probably Joel. I mean,
yes,
she rides up and
does.
she's like, "What's your name?" And it's, you know, so she's like, "Hey, I know your brother.
Yeah.
I'm married to him."
Yeah.
So they take them to Jackson, which of course is a change. Is a change because we never enter Jackson in game one. We ride up to it. We get close to it, right? But we don't go to Jackson. We meet them at the dam that they're trying to fix, and then they get attacked by these raiders, and we have to fight our way back. And this is where Joel and Tommy have their conversation about she's she's the cure and he needs to take her and all this stuff, and Joel's trying to pawn her off to Tommy. And in the game, Ellie runs away. Mm-hmm. And Joel and Tommy have to go off. They have to kill a bunch of dudes. And then they find Ellie in a house. And then that's when we have the scene that we get in this episode where when Joel finally finds her after she's ridden off on that horse that she meets in the stable. Mm-hmm. What's his name again? Shimmer. I'm pretty sure that's the horse she steals. I thought that,
so.
Or that's a name of a horse.
I
swear. You know, you can't keep every fucking detail straight. I swear that is though. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But anyways, that's the difference of the game is that he's trying to pawn her off. He never suggests that Tommy and him take her together, right? It just immediately is like, and this is definitely different. We see a much like more broken, open side of Joel in this, where he's like crying, and telling Tommy his real issues and all of this stuff. And in the game, Joel is much more, stern and like stoic and like I'm not gonna fucking ever let my guard down. And Tommy has to see it for himself. He decides to take Ellie after he sees, because there's a bunch of raiders who come in and they're about to kill them all, and Joel's trying to get to Ellie relentlessly. And when Joel enters the room, Ellie's still alive, and Ellie comes to him and is like telling him of all this stuff that was happening, like there was dudes coming in here and this and that. And he can see that there's this bond that's connecting them like father and daughter. And it's in that moment that Tommy like looks at Marlene, Maria, and is like, we need to talk. And this is when he tells her like, I'm going to take her because I know Joel can't handle losing another kid. Yeah. Right. And we do get this edition, and I really like this edition. And I want to hear your thoughts on this. Tommy has Maria pregnant.
Yeah, well, so I think that having Joel be more broken and open with Tommy, like, it makes sense, especially given what Maria says to Ellie this episode, like, to warning her to be careful who she trusts, because the people that you trust and, like, who you put your faith in, like, those are the ones that can betray you and everything. And Joel's obviously made comments about family and how important it is for him, and Tommy is his only family. Like, Tess was it for him, but not 100%. Like, he was still guarded with her. And I think, seeing him being vulnerable with Tommy really shows their relationship in with more depth. And having Tommy be a soon-to-be father, I think it's the same kind of feeling that Joel has about Ellie, right? Where it's like, why would you want to give yourself the potential for as much hurt and damage as I've gone through with him losing Sarah? Like, Tommy is bringing a kid into this world. Joel brought a kid into the old world where things were, for the most part, okay, pre-apocalypse. And, for Tommy to be doing it now, I think Joel has a bit of, he probably thinks he's a little naive to want to do that. And and that's his response whenever Tommy tells him that he's going to be a dad and that he hopes he'll be a good one, where he's like, I guess we'll find out. Like, it sucks because it is a painful thing where Tommy's wanting his older brother, to be happy for him, to be, like, reassuring, like, you will be a good dad, don't worry.
Congrats.
Say congrats, yeah. And Joel just can't do that.
Yeah.
For a lot of reasons. So I really like it. I think that it's a good addition, and I think all of the additions in this episode, just like all of the other episodes, have been really wonderful. I love seeing more of Jackson, because, as you said, we don't ever get to Jackson in the first game, but I really like that, we see Ellie and Joel there before they head out, to go to Colorado, and, everything else that might transpire later.
Well, sure.
It's nice just to see, see them in that setting.
I think what's really good about that, and I also want to point out that, like, when Joel and Tommy hug, there's a couple of mixed feelings going on there with Ellie. She's never seen him like that.
Yeah.
Open and loving with somebody. She's been with this gruff asshole for the last, X amount of months.
Yeah.
And also, like, she doesn't have that.
Right, she's jealous.
She's jealous of it to a degree, where she's just like...
That's how she wants Joel to act around her.
Which plays very heavily into the scene later when he's like, you don't know what loss is. Mm-hmm. We'll get there. But, backtracking to where I was going, I think it's very important in this version, and even in the game it would have been good too. Seeing Jackson, I think, is a really smart play as opposed to the dam, because the dam is kind of just like people working. It almost reminded me of Dawn of the Planet of the Apes when they're trying to fix the dam. It's just kind of a ragtag team of people that have come together to, like, fix this, but you don't see a township, you don't see a community, you don't see any of that kind of stuff. So I think it is important for Joel and Ellie to see this kind of hope, and, like, reminding each one of them of, like, the stakes and what they're trying to save, right? Like, in this show, since the outbreak, we haven't really gotten to see why the world's worth saving outside of the Frank and Bill storyline, which, yet again, for the 8,000th time, this is why the Frank and Bill episode is so important. Not only is it a lesson for Joel, but it's also a lesson for us to know what they're trying to save, right? But regardless, seeing this town, it gives them a lot. It gives them hope. It gives them something to, like, look forward to, because when Tommy is like, you're both welcome here, Joel says, we're counting on it.
Yeah.
Right? it's like now they have something to come back to.
Yes.
There is something worth saving. There is something worth surviving for and getting back. Joel gets to see his wish. You know, there's the sheep that he said that he wants to have on his farm, right? Which of course is kind of a nod to something in game 2.
It's also like the Jackson represents like something that neither of them has ever really had. Like Ellie was brought up in, you know, in a Fedra area, right? Like she didn't have that kind of community or that kind of like openness and like love that you can clearly see that exists in Jackson. I mean, just the amount of time we spend focusing on like children in this episode, especially, you know, like the movie scene, all the kids watching a movie, like they have a totally different life than she does. Like they are actually getting a childhood and she's been deprived of that.
Yeah.
And then Joel is, you know, by choice, you know, not living in that type of an environment. He didn't want to cultivate that kind of a community because he's so guarded and doesn't want to have any more pain, and he knows that if he cares about something, of course he'll feel pain. So
I also don't think that he thinks people are good enough for such a thing.
Yeah.
Like that kind of society, that kind of community would fall apart in theory with what he's encountered, but it's thriving. Mm-hmm. And to jump ahead just a little bit because it's on my mind, I have to point out how hilarious it is that Tommy comes to the realization as a Desert Storm veteran, somebody who fought for this country's values, who is probably a stern, staunch believer in, you know, the capitalist ideology, to find out that he's, you know, thriving in a communist, you know, ideology it is. I thought that was pretty funny, where he kind of stops and like is so taken aback of like, wait, communism works?
Yeah, well, and
in this setting, sure, when you get a small enough group of people that are actually working together.
That's what I was gonna say.
The reason most systems don't work is because there's too many fucking people and corruption exists. Any system can work. Socialism can work. Communism can work. They can all work. It's people that fuck it up. It's corruption that fucks all those systems up.
Well, and Joel points that out too this episode, because Ellie is asking like if it was always like that. And he's like, no, there is too many people, you know?
Yeah.
And everything with them and the contractor, like, I know we were jumping ahead, but that was, like, really definitely some of my favorite stuff this episode. And maybe of the show so far, just, like, how happy he was to be talking about his old job. And she was like, that's cool. Like, she was actually interested in it. Because it's so foreign to her. Yeah, like, everyone loves contractors. Yeah, and then she imitates him later, as you said. So that's all really sweet, and that's more of their, you know, they have a fight, obviously, big one this episode, but that's what ultimately leads them closer together, because it makes Joel really, like, actually think about what it is that he wants.
Yeah.
And what he cares about. So we also, in this episode, we get
a massive Easter egg.
Yeah.
It has to be. It's the only thing that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But, okay, it doesn't have to be.
But
it could just be another kid, but there's so many kids there, I can't imagine this isn't that.
Yeah. It's gotta be Dina.
It has to be. She's the right ethnicity.
Yes, and she looks she's about the same age as Ellie.
Yeah.
I would have to go, like, I would want to pause the scene and, like, try and zoom in to see.
So does this mean that Dinah is casted?
I don't know.
This is going to be her. Or will they age her up and then it will be... I think what they're doing there is... I think we're going to have in season 2... I guess this... okay, we got to wait for spoilers on that.
Yeah.
Never mind. Sorry. We won't say anything.
Wait.
We'll wait for the end. Okay. But for those of you who know who Dina is... Dinah. I always go back and forth.
Why do we always do that?
They call her one name only in the game. And that's... Dina.
It's Dina. It's just that it's like Dina. So you want to say Dinah. Because I do it both times too whenever I like go to say her name.
But isn't Dinah with an H at the end?
I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it is. We're just idiots. But it's got to be her.
Yeah, we think it's her. So
anyways, moving on from that.
And also I liked Joel has he's got a bunch of panic attacks, obviously, this episode, and one of them, like, he's in the middle of his panic attack, and he goes outside in Jackson, and he sees a girl from behind that has the same kind of hair that Sarah had, and he's like, oh my god, is that her? And then her daughter comes up, and, that whole sequence was very, very heartbreaking and just sad to see. But, of course, like, that's something that I think you hear a lot of people say. Like, I haven't had anybody very major in my life pass away, but I know that's a common thing where, like, you see them everywhere, right? Like, you're always catching glimpses of people that kind of look like them or that remind you of them. And, there's something very sweet and sad about that, so.
Well, and of course, I mean, the heartbreaking part of that scene is not just that he thinks he sees his daughter. He also is reminded of what he missed out on.
Sure, yeah.
Right? She has a daughter. Mm-hmm. And that would, he's looking at what should be his granddaughter.
Right.
He's looking at what should be his life. Yeah. He should be living in that communist commune with Tommy and, Maria and everybody. And his daughter should be in love and have a child or two, and he should be a grandfather.
Yeah.
And, or you could even look at it as like, this shit shouldn't have happened, and his daughter should have a kid by now in the normal world.
Of course.
So whichever version, whether she survived the zombie apocalypse, if you want to call it the zombie apocalypse, the infected apocalypse, the cordyceps fungal pandemic. How about that? Well, let's be really specific. Whether or not she survived that or it never happened, regardless, this is where it should be. Like, in the natural order of things.
Right.
If things follow the traditional path.
Yeah.
He should be a grandfather by now. He should be watching his daughter have the magic that he got to experience.
Yeah.
And he didn't get that. And seeing that is not only, it not only reminds him of Sarah and what he should have had, but it reminds him of what Ellie can potentially have in the future, and maybe he could have with her.
Right.
Right? Mm-hmm. But he doesn't, then again, he rejects that and is like, I can't go there. I don't want to go there. But the good thing is that in this episode, it's very clear, and it is this way in the games. And this isn't much of a spoiler, although I guess it would be, because never mind. Damn it. We'll save that. We'll bookmark that one too. Or curb it, as they say. Mm-hmm. And then, so we get the conversation between him and Tommy. Ellie's watching a movie. That conversation and all that stuff, all this is a little different because, like, I think we already said everything that's mostly different there. There's minor changes and major changes, but they ultimately all lead to the same place.
Yeah.
Right? And then we get to see the scene where Ellie is told about Sarah.
Yeah.
And we see, I think it's Kevin
Kevin is
Maria's son. Mm-hmm. And then Tommy puts Sarah up there. Yeah. Right, as his kid, but like his family, but like I lost a kid too. It wasn't mine, but basically Joel and him are like her parents.
Sure.
Right? They got a full house situation going on.
Yeah,
like Danny Tanner brings in Joey and Jesse, and it's kind of the similar thing here, where Tommy is always there.
Right, he was majorly involved in her life, and in the making of, the actor that plays Tommy says that when they were filming the scenes, that it's like Sarah's always a ghost between the two of them, like in the room.
Sure.
And I really like that because I think that that's true. And even in this episode, Tommy like accuses Joel and is like, just because life stopped for you doesn't mean it has to stop for me. And that's hard because it's not like he isn't, that he didn't grieve and that he doesn't wish that she was still alive or any of that, right? He's not trying to erase her memory or anything. He's just trying to continue living because he's still here. And Joel can't do that, obviously, because he feels much more guilty, I think, for what happened to Sarah. But I really liked, Ellie's reaction when she finds out that that Joel had a daughter that died. Like, she's just like, oh, that kind of explains a little bit now. And she's so, her performance is so wonderful as Ellie, and there's so many subtle things that just convey so much emotion. And just the, like, that very short, like, second where she's, she's not facing Maria, but just the look on her face where you're kind of, like, she's, like, again, jealous maybe a little bit, and also kind of hurt, and then that little bit of understanding that's there too. Although she still, I don't think, fully understands Joel's behavior, especially towards her, but she's getting a glimpse of why he might be afraid to be around her.
Sure. I mean, she's smart. She puts things together, but she also is, she's hurt because he's never mentioned it to her. It's like,
he hasn't
what
said
the fuck,
anything
man?
to her. Like, she's.
But now, he said, you don't ask me about my past, right?
Right.
So now she knows why.
Yes.
But it's still kind of like, really?
Yeah, well, she wants him to open up to her because she wants to be able to open up to him. She's never had that kind of a relationship with another adult.
Where's that stuff I bought recently?
Oh, it's right up there.
That's what I thought. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So one major thing that I was really hoping to have seen in this episode that we do not see is Tommy gives Joel a picture of Joel and Sarah while she has won a soccer trophy. And this is from the game, obviously. It's a pretty cool. This is on SD if you want to pick it up. It's like $10. Definitely worth it. It looks like a worn old picture. We also got another one I'll show you next week because it'll be relevant next week. But I was really hoping that we were going to see the exchange of this picture.
Yeah.
Because Tommy gives this to Joel, and he's like, I stopped by the house, on the way or whatever, and I picked this up, and then Joel says, I'm good.
Yeah, he
refused. Like, he takes it and he looks at it and he hands it back to him and he's like, I'm good.
Oh, it's so painful. You're like, no, Joel, take the fucking picture. Like, why would you not want it?
So yeah, I was really hoping to see this. I was hoping to see Sarah in a soccer outfit and him holding her like that.
Yeah.
We still might see that picture.
Yeah,
I wouldn't.
It's possible.
I wouldn't take it off the table. But I'm really surprised that scene didn't happen.
Yeah, I am too, but it's okay. I do think that there's potential for that photo to come up later at some point.
I just don't know how it could come up in the same way.
I know it's not the same. It would be different for sure. Because I don't think that he'll reject it the way he does in the game, and that's okay. I like that we're melting Joel quicker and more openly in the show. I feel like we get so much more of his emotions and what he's going through. I mean, we do get really phenomenal performances in the game, in the cutscenes and everything, but so much of the game you're spent playing as him and just being invincible and fighting, and it's like, in the show, we're not fighting, you're not controlling his movements and making him kill people, so it's easier to go into that.
Yeah. I definitely still think he could be given the picture by someone else, the second person that...
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't want to say anything else. But regardless, yeah, that was something missing from this episode that I was quite bummed that was not here. So, yeah, I really wish that would have been in here, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on from there, Ellie, which we don't see her sneak in to listen, but I guess she was listening. We do see her sneak out of the movie.
Yeah.
I thought for sure she was going to encounter Dina again.
Yeah.
Because we saw her looking.
Run into her. Yeah.
I thought she was the one who left her the note on the bed alongside of the
menstrual cup?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was Maria.
But it wasn't, yeah.
No.
That's okay.
Yeah.
So I think, I do... Oh, right, I have to say that for the end. Moving on. And then, Joel comes in to the room after the Tommy talk. And this is where we get the near shot for shot, line for line recreation from the game. The place she's sitting up on that little nook up by the window. That room looks exactly the same. She's reading the diary. Is this what people used to have to worry about? And then, you don't know what loss is. And, everyone I've ever loved has died or left me. Everybody except for fucking you.
Yeah.
And all that stuff, right? And, like, every single word of this and every single, like, the shots, the lines, the room.
Yeah.
It's like 99%.
Yes.
And Craig Mazin had said in the after that this was one of, if not the most important scene in the game, and this is why he chose to keep it verbatim.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was great to see. I mean, and both of them nailed their moments perfectly. And we do get to see something that is foreshadowing, which is Joel's, I'll say, self-obsession, right? Or his selfishness, where he's like, no one's ever hurt like me.
Yes.
No one's ever lost anything but me.
Right, and they live in a world where literally
everyone's lost everything.
Has lost everything and
Yes.
someone important. Yeah, he's very selfish when it comes to his grief and pain.
Yes.
And it's hard for him to see that other people are hurting just as much as he is.
Yes.
And it's frustrating because you just want to, like, smack him.
Yes.
It's just like, dude, like, you're not the only one on the planet that has feelings. Like,
she's out here with you.
Yes.
Alone.
Yeah.
Right?
And you're going to be like, you don't
You've
know
never
what
lost anything.
She has
like,
nobody.
You literally know nothing about her.
Yeah.
Right? Like, let's keep our past to ourselves. Like, you don't know what she's lost.
Right.
She clearly doesn't have a mom or a dad. Like,
do you know, like,
she's a child.
Did she see them die?
Yeah.
Did she have to kill them? Did they turn, right? Like, there
Right.
could have been so many scenarios that would have been just as painful as what happened with him and Sarah.
If there's anything on this earth that's as, like, damaging psychologically and painful of a parent losing a child, is a child losing a parent.
Of course, yeah.
Right? On the flip side of that. Not like in their older age. I'm talking about when they're still a child. Right? That can be just as damaging, if not more damaging, because they don't have any, they haven't developed any coping mechanisms. They don't understand the world yet. They don't know how to handle things. So, and that doesn't make it that much easier when you were to lose a child, I would assume.
Sure, it doesn't, but
being a child, you still don't know how to put your emotions in check. You don't know how to deal with things. And then you don't have mentors. You don't have stability. You don't have anything.
Yeah.
So Joel saying you don't know what loss is a real dick thing to say in this world.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. And, like, he obviously, I don't know if he stays up the whole night or what, but Ellie and Tommy, go out to the barn, and he's there already at the stable, saying that he was planning on, like, stealing a horse and leaving, but he's still there. And he gives her a choice of, like, whether she wants Tommy to take her or him, and she's, like, instantly like, let's go. She wants to go with him, even though he said such a hurtful thing to her the night before, but she's bonded to him, like, she wants to be with him. And that choice, I don't even really feel like he's only giving her that choice, even though he, like, as a, not a formality, but it's not a choice. Like, he knows what she's gonna pick.
Sure.
And he knows what he's already picked.
I don't think he knows that for sure. I think he thinks that she's really pissed off at him for what he said to her. And he's like, if you still want to go with me. And it's like, for her, it's like, duh.
Yeah.
Right, like, no way. Now, this is a deviation, of course, from the game. So, in the game, after Tommy and Joel find Ellie, they decide, Tommy's like, all right, I'm taking her. And he rides off. Now, he'd already told Maria that he was going to take her, but he was like, all right, I'm taking her. And so they ride up, and they ride to the city limits of Jackson, right outside. And, you know, this is where they're going to part ways. And Joel's going to ride into Jackson, and Tommy's going to ride off with Ellie and deliver her to the Fireflies. And Joel's like still up on his horse, and he's like, you know, Ellie, you know, get your stuff, come on, let's go. And Tommy's like, what? And he's like, I've already made up my mind.
Yeah.
Right, like she's coming.
Yeah.
Right, there is no choice to her,
right.
to him or her or anything. It's just, you know, and she's like very happy.
Yeah.
That he's chosen her, because this is just it. He's abandoning her, and she's like, you know, you can't leave me. Like, everyone else has left me. They've either died or they've left.
Yeah.
And, like, you're the only thing I care about. And another big change here is she says, you know, this is probably the only major change of that, or any change almost at all of that scene that they kept almost verbatim. She says, do you care about me? And he says, of course I do. Mm-hmm. This is different.
Yeah, that is different.
This is different, because that does not happen.
Yeah.
And, you know, him giving her the choice and all that is a little different. And then they ride off. And then we get to Colorado, which I didn't know we were going to get this far in this episode. I kind of thought that it was going to be him taking her, and then it was going to go into the Colorado. But then once they got there, I was like, oh, Joel's going to get injured. And then it's gonna end on him bleeding out.
Yeah,
which
it makes sense.
It's the cliffhanger,
yeah.
Right? But I love that we open on that scene with Joel teaching Ellie the rules of football, just like in the game. These callbacks to the game, the way the college looks, the monkeys.
Yes, the monkeys are so good.
Him finding that it's in Salt Lake City, even though it's on a recorder, and on this it's like a little
the map instead,
push board, a little pin board or whatever. But all this stuff, this is where the show really streamlines things.
Yeah.
And cuts out. And don't get me wrong,
but it makes
90% of it I do not want to see in the show. I don't
mean,
want to see him going and turning on generators to open up freaking doors and stuff. Like, that is completely pointless. I'm glad they wrote right in.
Yes.
But I did wish that the fight between Joel and this random guy who is the one that gets him injured. In the game, they get into a fight, and they're on the second story of the college. And Joel and him fall off of a ledge, and the guy, hits the ground, and Joel lands on some rebar that's sticking out of the ground. And then Joel and Ellie have to make their way to the horse as Joel's bleeding out. And this goes on for quite a while. And then you get on the horse and you keep falling off and getting back on. In this, he just gets stabbed by him. They jump. The horse is right there next to them, and then they ride off. So it's like 2 seconds of what would be like an hour of the game.
Sure, but I think that it is streamlined, as we've been saying, and I'm totally fine with it. I do also think that there's, it shows how quickly things can change. Like, they're in such high spirits, talking to each other, having a good time, like joking, getting to know each other more, talking about the future. Joel says that he wanted to be a singer, and that he's gonna sing for her, even though she's already laughing at him and all this. And so, from going from that and having all this hope and like, all right, we're gonna get you to the Fireflies, we're gonna get your cure, and then they show up there and they're gone, and it's like, we're not done yet. And then there's other people, that show up that are there to raid or whatever. I like that it flips so quickly, and I think that him getting stabbed, it happening so fast, just kind of is reinforcing how dangerous the world is, especially this world.
Yeah, sure. And something, we got this moment here where Joel ultimately is like, he's admitted that he cares about her. They're bonding like father and daughter now. He's teaching her football, which is a very parent thing to do, right? It's a mentor father-son, father-daughter thing, right? Joel is opening up. He's telling her about his job. He's telling her about something he loved, which was football. He's telling her like more intimate details. So now that gruff side of Joel, that closed off side of Joel, that this episode is the death of that. We are done with that side of Joel. Yeah. Right? Now we're in the I'm full in on Ellie. She's, important to me, and I'm all in. Yeah. Right? So, all right, so let's talk about some spoilers for next week or the coming weeks. Just things I wanted to talk about that I didn't. It's not going to be major spoilers. It's just some little things that I was like, okay. But if you've played the games, you're safe to stay because you'll know. And if you don't care, you can stay as well, right? So we don't have to worry because now that we've said spoilers from here, hopefully only people who know what happens because they've played the games will be here. So anyways, I wanted to say, obviously, and this isn't much of a spoiler, I can't imagine, but Kaylee was pointing this out, and it's like, yeah, I guess, because there have been deaths like Tess, and like Sarah, and like Bill and Frank, and, Henry and Sam. We got these major player characters that feel like they're going to be more important to the show, and they have a lot of shocking deaths. There probably is some people that are like, Joel's dying, or Joel just died. Yeah. And it's like, he didn't, right? Like we know he didn't. And I don't want to say anything about game 2. But yeah, it is interesting to think that there's people who are left on this cliffhanger of like, Joel's dead. Yeah. Right? That's, yeah, I'm curious, if people are having that reaction and like what that means, like if they're upset about it or, just what their feelings are. But, yeah, as you said, obviously Joel's not dead. Yeah. So, but it makes sense to leave it on that as a cliffhanger, Absolutely. Absolutely. As far as the Dinah stuff goes, or Dina. Why did I do that again? As far as the Dina stuff goes, I was going to say that I do think when we hit season 2, and because we do kind of get an homage-ish to spoilers for game 2, right, guys? If you haven't played it, check out. The first kiss between Dina and Ellie happens under those like Christmas light kinds of things that you put in a gazebo. Yeah. Because they're in a gazebo, like a large. They're not like in a gazebo, but I thought it was like outdoors too. Cylindrical building that's open on the outside, like a big gazebo. I guess you're right. It would be like a big gazebo. Yeah, I'm not crazy. Yeah, I was just thinking for some reason that there was like another word, but. I mean, there might be, but that's essentially what it is, though. It is right? It is like an Easter egg for that scene because they are the same Christmas lights. Yeah. Now, granted, we haven't played game 2 in over a year. Yeah. So we definitely need to do that, and we will 1,000% do that before season 2. Yes. But it's just getting back to the point. As far as the Dina stuff goes, so Dina, I think when Dina and Ellie have their like first kiss, their interaction, she's gonna say something along the lines, or it might not be in the kiss. It might not be till later. I don't know, but I am almost positive that this scene in this episode is to be played later in season 2, when Dina's like, I've had a crush on you since the day I laid eyes on you. Sure. And she's gonna be like, wait, where was that? And she'll be like, the first time you came here. You'd be like, what? Yeah. And we're gonna get a flashback to that scene where she was like, I was the one watching you.
Yeah.
Like I'm almost positive that is
That would be
there
really cool.
just for season 2, for her to reference it and for us to get a glimpse of it, so that when people go back to watch season 1,
They'll be like,
they're gonna be like, "That's Dina!"
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's what I thought when I saw it, because when we didn't see her again and they leave Jackson,
Right.
I know we ain't coming back in this season.
Yes.
Right? So I'm like, okay, that's Dina, and we're going to get reference to that from Dina later when they're in a romantic moment.
Yeah. I think that's probably true.
Yeah.
So I love that.
They inserted that here specifically to put it in a season 2.
Yeah.
And if for some reason season 2 never got approved, it already did, but if it didn't, it wouldn't matter.
Right.
Like, it would just be one of the kids watching her, or for us, it would be like, that's probably Dina, right?
Yeah.
Like we never got to see because people suck,
Oh my
and
God,
you know
that would have been horrible.
That would have been horrible, but we're definitely getting a season 2. But anyway, that's what I wanted to say about that, but I didn't want to allude to anything with Dana.
Yeah.
In that, we're gonna play the game, and it's gonna be pronounced Dinah. I'm gonna kill myself.
Oh my God, me too. It's Dina. We're fake fans.
We're not fake fans. We're beyond not fake fans.
I know.
But anyway. And then, yeah, I also, and I kind of screwed this up a little bit because I said this is the end of Joel's feelings towards that alluded to the fact that he's alive. But right.
Oh, I guess you're right. Yeah.
And then, so yeah, I mean, obviously from here on, Joel is all in on Ellie. But regardless, what the next episode will be, obviously the next week on, which we watch in this show because we know the spoilers, so we don't really care. All we see is the Left Behind DLC. Now, is it possible that the entirety of episode 7 will be like Bill and Frank, and it will just be an episode in the past exploring Ellie and Riley? I do think that we need to spend the majority of the episode in that, right?
Yeah.
I do think that 75% of the episode needs to be that. But in the DLC, it's not just that. It is also Ellie trying to get a med kit in another mall that's juxtaposed.
Yeah.
There's a juxtaposition that's juxtaposed of the mall that she's in looking for Joel's bandage kit versus the malls that she went into with Riley.
Yeah.
So will we see that stuff? And where will that end? Will we meet the cannibals? Mm-hmm. Will we not? Will we, I don't know. I don't know where that would leap off. I can't imagine all we're going to get. Because if they're going to stay faithful to the DLC, we should see Joel being pulled into the mall and her trying to recover some stuff on her own.
Right.
Before, we jump ahead a little bit and Joel's sick and the cannibal stuff happens.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I think I agree with you that I think most of the episode should be spent with like flashbacks with her and Riley. But
it should be like back and forth.
But I do feel like it should be
malls.
back and forth, just because I think that's a really clever way to do a flashback and to tell like the current present story as well.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I liked what you had said earlier about maybe the episode ending with Ellie being taken. And
yeah, taken by the
Joel's
cannibals,
just
and then
left
Joel
there.
wakes up from the penicillin kicking in.
Yeah, either he wakes up at the end of the episode or he wakes up at the beginning of the next episode.
Yeah, it could just be her, her horse gets killed, the horse gets killed, Ellie is dragged off by the cannibals, and she's like kicking and screaming, credits.
Yeah.
That could definitely be where we end, because it's like, it's going to be a cliffhanger. Right. And then, episode 8, he wakes up.
Right.
And then he interrogates the guys.
Yeah.
Right. Even though he did kind of give a nod to that scene in this episode, which is either foreshadowing or we're not going to see that scene.
I think it's foreshadowing.
Right? He's like, you better, point to the map, and it better be the same as your wife.
Yeah, I think it's foreshadowing. I think that's definitely something that's going to come up again later, but maybe not.
I really want to see it.
I want to see it too.
The fucking,
I think
when he slaps the guy and he's like, right here.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. Yeah. And he fucking sticks it in his knee and he twists it and he, like, slaps him across the face. That's such a real scene Like, there's something about that scene that felt like legitimately real people.
Yeah, and I think that is important because Joel obviously becomes very unhinged in the ending of the first game. So I think that we do need to see him kind of resorting back to that type of behavior.
Because episode 8, I can only assume, is going to end with Ellie has killed the leader of the cannibals. They're in the fucking burning restaurant.
Yeah.
And they run out of there.
Yeah, right? That's what would make the most sense to me.
And they ride off, and I even just see her crying next to his body.
Yeah.
Because of what he's done. And then that ends the episode, and then obviously we go to Salt Lake City in episode 9, and all of that happens. And that episode needs to be like an hour and 20.
Yeah.
The finale needs to be like an hour 20, hour and 30.
Yeah.
I'll be surprised if it isn't. So, so DLC, we go back and forth between the malls, and then I just can't imagine they're doing all of the DLC back and forth. Then she meets, what's the damn leader of the cannibals' name? It's not
like David. I don't remember it.
Henry?
No,
I think you're all right on that. David. That's right. Yeah, I'm almost positive you're right on that.
I don't know.
Shit.
I'm not positive.
We are fake fans.
Fake fans.
No, we're not.
Just bad with names. We've already said this tons of times. I don't even remember his name most of the time.
Yeah, 100%.
Because I call him all kinds of other things.
But we'll know. But I just can't imagine them doing all of the DLC and then her meeting David. I think that's right. And then her and him having the interaction, her getting the medication, then them coming after her and her getting away and then caught to divert them away from the fact that Joel's in that garage. I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
We're done. Any more?
No.
Yeah. Wonderful episode, of course. A near flawless adaptation. Some minor changes and location changes, and I really wish we would have got the picture. I really wish we would have saw a little bit more of a fight with Joel and the guys in the campus. But at the end of the day, I don't really care. The picture is the biggest one for me.
Yeah,
I'm
too.
bummed that we didn't get the picture.
Yeah.
I will say that. But what we've gotten so far, to be like, I didn't get a photograph.
Oh my gosh.
Is my biggest complaint.
Yeah.
I'm doing wonderful.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
Another fantastic episode. Can't wait for next week. We will be back. So until then, endure and survive.
Yep. Endure and survive.
Bye.